Today we're going to look at, and I'm going to react to the Martin Luther King I Have a Dream sequence of his I Have a Dream speech. This comes about 3/4 of the way through a 17-minute or so speech that he gave in Washington, D.C. It's the most famous section, and obviously I've seen this before, but what we're going to do is watch this, and then I'm going to react afterward. I'm going to try not to pause it if I can resist the urge, and then at the end I'll give some big picture takeaways about especially this sequence is incredibly memorable and really sticks with us years and years later. So let's do that now.
So even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
Is President Lincoln.
I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today I have a dream that one day down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, and every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together.
Whew, okay. Wow, that is amazing. So you can probably already see how powerful this is, and how it's really the crescendo, the climax of this speech. There is more after this, and really this whole speech is absolutely amazing. But this has become the centerpiece that people look at over and over again. So here are some big takeaways as to why. First of all, you can't help but notice the passion and the energy in his voice. Now, he, of course, came out of the church as a preacher and preached for many years, probably multiple times per week, before anybody ever knew him outside of his local community. So he has a lot of practice, and part of that practice resulted in a stylized way of public speaking, a stylized approach, unique somewhat to him, but coming out of the church, you can hear that religious sound, that preacher's sound. So that really has an emotional power to it, a sense of urgency. So secondly, he has a really clear thesis statement, as we call it in college. He says, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. He's quoting the Declaration of Independence. So he's taking his thesis statement and saying, look, I believe what you believe. And that thesis statement is really hard to argue with if you're an American. So he's really drawing on what's already common sense to the American mindset. And he's saying, this is what I want. He also uses an incredibly vivid theme of this concept of a dream. So the word dream is no accident here. He didn't use the word idea or goal or vision for the future. He said dream because just the word dream begins to transport us into his world. I remember a professor I had, a friend of mine, Dr. Peter Marston, he might be watching, and he said, had King said, I have an idea, nobody would have remembered this speech. But I have a dream begins to sweep us up into his imagination and hope for the future in a really powerful way. Next, parallel structure. So he says, depending on how you count it, I have a dream. He uses that phrase 8 or 9 times. If you count the very first usage of it, I still have a dream today, I believe he says. And then he gets into the rhythm. He says it 8 or 9 times, depending on where you start that count. That parallel structure, starting, I have a dream, I have a dream, I have a dream, gives a message that could have been seen as individual parts and statements. It gives it a coherence. It holds the whole thing together. It makes it sound like a contained message. And along with that is, of course, the repetition. Now, a lot of people know that famous quote from the middle of this, that he wants his kids to be judged by the content of their character. And if you notice when you listen, that was the 4th or 5th time he said, I have a dream. And that's where he really turned the crowd around and they got super excited. They said, okay, we see where you're going with this now. That momentum really started to build, and that repetition of the phrase over and over again is what helped it cut through and helps that message really land. He also uses the power of language generally. So he has powerful imagery in almost every single line. He's got the valley of despair, the table of brotherhood, the oasis of freedom and justice. It's just amazing. He uses I think it's a biblical quote about all the valleys will be exalted and the mountains will be brought low. I mean, that, and the crooked places made straight. I mean, that is powerful, powerful imagery and just an amazing use of language. And another aspect here of language is alliteration. He uses every trick in the book really, but alliteration is really noticeable, especially in that line, not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. He's using that hard C as a repetitive alliteration. And so it really makes the message feel like it has a sense of legitimacy. He doesn't do a lot of rhyming in here, but some speakers rhyme. Another good technique, though, is alliteration. It gives this, when you start with the same first letters like that, it establishes a rhythm, but also makes it sound like, wow, this is official. It's almost like a little magical trick you can play. There's a game that my son plays, and there's something in it called the Wonder Weapon, WW, Wonder Weapon, or Wonder Woman for that matter. That's alliteration, and it makes whatever you're talking about seem that much more enhanced and official. So big picture, backing out of this, you can see, I believe, I can certainly see why this piece of communication, this piece of rhetoric here in our nation's history is such a powerful and memorable speech given on an important occasion for an important cause. It's very difficult to imitate speakers like this and try to sound like they sound, but we can all do these kinds of things in our speaking. A clear thesis, really clear message, parallel structure, repetition, alliteration, imagery. We can weave these things in and make it sound like us, but we can still use these same techniques to make it stick. So, question for you, what are your thoughts on this? Write them below. Who else do you think I should react to? Please make those comments below and I'll look into it and see what's out there. So thanks, God bless, and I will see you in the next video.